Hey there, welcome back. Great to see you again for Law number 7, Listen for What's Unsaid. If you haven't watched the previous episodes yet, you're missing some important steps in this journey. Words are visible architecture. Silence is the empty space that gives them shape. Most people are trained to look only at what is built, the statements, the arguments, the promises, but it is the emptiness between them that reveals the true design. In this space, in what is left unsaid, lies the territory where real power is negotiated. Across civilizations, silence has been revered as more than the absence of sound. In Japanese culture, there is chinmoku, the art of communicating through quiet. It is not awkwardness, it is intentional, a form of respect and reflection that forces the listener to consider meaning before reacting. Then there is ma, the purposeful space between words, notes, or actions, an understanding that what is not there can be more expressive than what is. A Japanese meeting room might be filled with a pause so long it would unnerve a Westerner, but within that pause, decisions are forming, alliances are shifting, and respect is silently measured. This understanding is not limited to Japan. In certain West African creation stories, before the universe existed, there was the Great Silence, a stillness so complete it was pregnant with potential. Only after this silence did sound emerge, shaping the world. In Zen Buddhism, silence is the point of return, a reminder that beneath the noise of thought and ego lies clarity. Even in the myths of Greece, the gods often spoke not in endless speeches, but in riddles, omens, and quiet gestures that forced mortals to interpret meaning. In all these traditions, silence is not void. It is presence. It is the still water that reflects the truth without distortion. Those who do not understand this rush to fill the air with noise, afraid of what might surface in the quiet. But those who do understand know that in a pause, more is revealed than in hours of speech. A hesitation can betray fear. A change in breathing can betray a lie. The subject that someone consistently avoids is often the most important one in their life. To master this law, you must train yourself to hear silence the way others hear sound. Noticing the gaps is an act of attention, a discipline of presence. In a world that measures intelligence by how quickly you respond, you must learn the opposite, to measure by how long you can hold the pause. This is not about being passive. It is about allowing the quiet to draw truth to the surface. In the stillness between words, people reveal themselves. And once you see what they are hiding, you will never be misled by what they say. Silence, when used with intent, is not a pause in the battle. It is a weapon that changes its rhythm. Most people believe the one speaking is the one in control. But in truth, control often belongs to the one who can withhold speech. This is why experienced negotiators, interrogators, and leaders learn to leave sentences unfinished, to let questions hang unanswered, to let the silence expand until it presses on the other person like a weight. This is not about being passive. It is about allowing the quiet to draw truth to the surface. In the stillness between words, people reveal themselves. And once you see what they are hiding, you will never be misled by what they say. Silence, when used with intent, is not a pause in the battle. It is a weapon that changes its rhythm. Most people believe the one speaking is the one in control, but in truth, control often belongs to the one who can withhold speech. This is why experienced negotiators, interrogators, and leaders learn to leave sentences unfinished, to let questions hang unanswered, to let the silence expand until it presses on the other person like a weight. Human beings are wired to resolve tension. When a pause becomes uncomfortable, most will rush to fill it with concessions, explanations, or confessions. A skilled operator understands this instinct and uses it deliberately. Think of a high-stakes negotiation. A demand is made, the other side stops speaking, and instead of answering immediately, you let the moment stretch. Your stillness forces them to reconsider their position, to interpret your quiet as disapproval or disinterest, to speak again, often improving their own offer without you having said a word. In interrogation rooms, silence is even more potent. Detectives know that a suspect who is left to sit in the quiet will often start talking just to break the oppressive weight of stillness. And in the arena of diplomacy, a pause after a statement can turn a simple sentence into a veiled threat, its meaning magnified by what is left unspoken. The effectiveness of silence lies in its ability to make the other person do the work. When you speak constantly, you reveal your thinking, your boundaries, your intentions. When you are silent, others are forced to guess, to imagine, to project, and in doing so, they often reveal more about themselves than they intended. This is why some of history's most feared figures were not the loudest, but the quietest. They understood that unpredictability comes from what you don't give away. There is also an element of psychological warfare in silence. It denies the opponent the feedback they crave. Without verbal cues, they cannot measure whether they are succeeding or failing, cannot adjust their strategy with certainty. This breeds insecurity, and insecurity leads to mistakes. A fighter who shows no reaction to an opponent's best punches forces that opponent to question their own power. A political leader who does not rush to answer criticism forces the opposition to wonder if their attack has even landed. In both cases, silence shifts the burden from you to them. They now carry the weight of uncertainty. But the use of silence requires discipline. Without control, it becomes passivity, and passivity signals weakness. The art lies in pairing silence with presence. Your stillness must feel intentional, not vacant. The Japanese concept of ma captures this perfectly. It is not just empty space, it is space charged with meaning. A pause works only if the other person senses that you are choosing not to speak, that behind the quiet is a mind actively weighing, observing, deciding. This transforms silence from absence into dominance. The untrained ear listens only to what is spoken. The trained mind hears the shape of what is missing. Every conversation is like a painting. The colors may be vivid, but the empty spaces define the image. Learning to read those spaces, the omissions, the pauses, the words left hanging, is what separates ordinary listeners from those who truly see the person in front of them. Psychologists have long studied what they call leakage, the small, involuntary signals that slip through when someone is hiding something. Dr. Paul Ekman's research on microexpressions, fleeting facial changes lasting less than a quarter of a second, showed that even the most disciplined liars cannot fully suppress their true emotions. A flicker of anger before a smile, a shadow of fear before a denial, these are the whispers of truth escaping before the mind slams the door shut. But microexpressions are only one part of the language of the unsaid. Tone, rhythm, and hesitation speak volumes. A confident person will answer immediately. One who pauses too long before a simple question may be weighing how much of the truth they can afford to reveal. Then there is the art of spotting omissions. People rarely lie by constructing a completely false reality. The risk of being caught in a fabricated detail is too high. Instead, they withhold. They tell you part of the truth, carefully avoiding the sections that would alter your understanding. A politician may talk at length about their plan for the future, but leave out entirely the failures of the past. A business partner may give you glowing numbers, but never mention the deaths. The danger is not always in the lies themselves, but in the silence that wraps around them. Contradictions between words and actions are another form of the unsaid. A person may claim to be unbothered by a decision, yet their hands tighten on the table edge. They may insist on trust, yet avoid direct eye contact when making promises. Human beings reveal themselves not in their declarations, but in the fractures where behavior and speech fail to align. To read these gaps, you must train not just your observation, but your patience. The best readers of the unsaid are not the quickest responders, but the ones who can stay still long enough for the truth to leak out on its own. This means resisting the urge to interrupt, to steer the conversation, to fill the silence. It means allowing others to show you who they are, without rushing to define them yourself. In this sense, you become less like a conversationalist and more like a hunter, not chasing the prey, but letting it step into the open on its own. The more you practice, the more you will notice that the unsaid is everywhere. In a business deal, it is the clause the other side avoids mentioning. In a friendship, it is the topic that always changes when you approach it. In love, it is the absence of certain words at moments when they would matter most. When you start hearing these silences, you can navigate people not just by what they tell you, but by what they are working to keep from you. And once you know that, you stop being surprised, because you are already 3 steps ahead. Silence is a double-edged blade. It can be a wall that protects, or it can be a door left slightly ajar. The master of this law knows how to tell the difference. Misreading the unsaid is one of the most costly errors in human interaction. Approach a defensive silence as if it were an invitation, and you will find yourself walking into an ambush. Treat an inviting silence as a threat, and you will miss your opportunity. The first step in interpretation is to measure the emotional charge of the silence. Defensive silence often carries tension. It feels heavy, constricted, like the air in the room is denser. In such moments, the other person's body language often closes, arms crossed, legs angled away, eyes scanning for escape. This is the silence of someone protecting information, territory, or emotion. It is a warning that pushing further now will only harden their resistance. Inviting silence, on the other hand, is lighter. It has space in it, as though the other person has deliberately stepped aside to let you through. The body language here is more open, eye contact is steady, posture is relaxed, even if no words are exchanged. This kind of silence is often a test. They are waiting to see whether you will step forward, fill the space, or prove worthy of deeper disclosure. In Japanese culture, this would be a kind of ma, charged not with hostility, but with potential, a space pregnant with possibility. History is full of moments where the ability to read this distinction changed the course of events. In 1940, when Winston Churchill met with Charles de Gaulle during the early days of the German advance into France, there was a long, quiet pause after Churchill laid out Britain's grim position. That silence could have been taken as French hesitation or disapproval. But Churchill read it as the pause of a man weighing the gravity of alliance, not rejecting it. He leaned in, pressed the case, and secured a partnership that would become critical to the Allied war effort. In business, the difference can mean millions. A seasoned negotiator knows that when a potential partner falls silent after hearing terms, it is not always a sign of resistance. Sometimes they are silently calculating whether they can meet you halfway. Push too hard, and you break the moment. Hold steady, and they will often meet you in the middle of that quiet space. And then there are personal relationships, where the unsaid often carries more weight than the spoken. A partner who stops mentioning a certain dream may have quietly given up on it, or they may be waiting for you to ask why. A friend who falls silent in a conversation about your success may be silently wrestling with envy or with pride. In such cases, interpreting the silence is not about gaining advantage, but about strengthening the connection. The truth is, silence is neither inherently dangerous nor inherently safe. It is context that decides. The one who can sense the charge in the quiet, who can feel whether it is a shield or an opening, holds a rare and valuable advantage. Because in every interaction, there comes a moment when the words stop. And in that moment, those who understand the unsaid are already making their move. Mastery of the unsaid is not a gift you are born with. It is a discipline forged through constant awareness. To wield silence and read it with precision, you must first unlearn the reflex that drives most people to speak without thinking. This is harder than it sounds, because conversation is more than an exchange of information. It is a social contract in which silence is often mistaken for weakness, ignorance, or disapproval. To break this reflex, you must train yourself to become comfortable with holding the pause, to remain calm while others grow restless in the stillness. One of the most effective exercises is to practice intentional non-response. In low-stakes conversations, a casual chat, a team meeting, even small talk with strangers, allow a question or statement to hang for a few seconds before answering. Use the time not to plan your rebuttal, but to observe. Watch their eyes. Notice whether their shoulders rise or drop. Listen for the subtle shift in tone when they speak again. You will begin to see how often people rush to fill the gap and how much they reveal when they do. Another training method is silence observation. In your daily life, pay attention to where silence naturally occurs, on a train, in a shop, in a tense family dinner, and study its texture. Is it thick with tension, light with comfort, charged with anticipation? Over time, you will develop an intuitive sense of the weight of silence, much like a seasoned fighter can feel the intent behind an opponent's stance before a punch is thrown. The advanced practitioner goes further. They learn to craft silences to achieve specific effects. In negotiations, they use silence to pressure the other side into speaking first. In leadership, they use it to make their words carry more weight when they finally do speak. In relationships, they use it to draw someone's true feelings into the open without confrontation. The key is control. A silence that is too long may harden resistance, while one that is too short loses its edge. You must learn to calibrate it like a blade, sharp enough to cut, but never so heavy that it becomes blunt. It is worth remembering that in mastering silence, you are also mastering yourself. To remain still when your instincts urge you to speak requires emotional control. To hear what is not said requires focus. To decide when to break the silence requires judgment. This is why the ability to command the unsaid has always been associated with wisdom, from the monks who meditate for hours without speech to the generals who plan campaigns without revealing their intentions until the decisive moment. Ultimately, silence is not the absence of communication, it is the highest form of it. It is where strategy, psychology, and presence converge. Those who learn to listen for what's unsaid gain more than just insight. They gain control over the rhythm of every exchange they enter. All right, that's a wrap for Part 7. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I appreciate your time and energy. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow and keeps the content coming your way. And be sure to check out Part 8, where we dive in to read the invisible script. Until then, take care and keep growing. See you in the next one.